Now, in the U.S. military, if you're an officer, you are subject to recall up to the age of, I believe, 70. Mark Kelly isn't 70. And this is just falderall nonsense to make great leader happy. There's nothing here. I mean, after all that the 6 Democrats did was state the law. You are not to follow illegal orders. Trump, I don't think, heard IL. He just heard orders. He didn't ever hear legal orders. He just heard orders. And I'm sure he's being manipulated by his staff about this.
Yeah, I mean, this is interesting. A lot of this stuff, and that's a great reminder to us, is done for the supreme leader. And in this case, he does this for his followers. It's echoed around. Yeah, we're going to do it, sir. We're gonna look into these people. We're going to look into Mark Kelly, and then Trump, goes to sleep feeling satisfied, at least for the moment.
Yep.
There's so much here, David. I think I want to touch on Ukraine because I know you've talked about it here several times, and the supposed peace deal that's being cobbled together here feels a bit warmed over from the Gaza deal. It's a 28-point plan that's been reduced to 19 points. The Russians say, hey, we like the 28-point plan. The Russians are also saying, and this is from sources inside Russia, hey, the deal that we made in Alaska, that's the one that we want, which is even more damning toward Ukraine than this one. And this one is pretty damning toward Ukraine. It involves giving up a lot of territory, this flimsy guarantee from the Americans in terms of security. Can you speak to this moment in their history of this conflict?
Yeah, first of all, the 28-point plan is a Russian plan. And it is indicative of the utter incompetence of this White House and its national security team, that they don't recognize what's been widely reported, that this is a Russian plan. The Russians wrote this. Secondly, why would Ukraine ever agree to something where they would give up territory the Russians aren't even occupying? That's part of this plan. They give up the whole Donbass region, only part of which is under Russian control. And the underlying message that would come from this is very clear. Vladimir Putin is being very aggressive right now. He's had drone flights over Romania. He's had overflights of Poland. He is signaling very clearly that, in fact, Ukraine is just the first goal to conquer, just the first. And the Europeans seem much more aware of this. The British newspapers I subscribe to, for example, seem much clearer in understanding this than the American news organizations, none of which, I may have missed it because there's a lot to be read, but in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, I have not read a clear piece that says Donald Trump is promoting a 100% Russian plan. And this is a plan decided between Putin and Trump. I'm sorry, there's a third player here.
Well, that's why it was amazing to me to hear that the Ukrainians were, this is the kind of news of the day, okay with this, that they seem to be. And I'm wondering if that isn't performative, because their parliament, apparently, is what I've read, they're not okay with this. And the Russians, as we've said, are not okay with this. They wanted the 28-point plan, as you say.
Yeah. I think it's very clear that Zelensky is under tremendous pressure, that he's extremely worried that Trump will openly turn on him again. Now, the Europeans have put more money into this war than we have. And let's remember, we don't give Ukraine money, a tiny bit of money. We give them weaponry, electronic warfare tools, and the like. It is a jobs program in the United States. It's a jobs program for munitions factories in Germany and France and Italy and the United Kingdom. But Zelensky clearly has been persuaded by somebody that there's a real danger point here with Trump, and this could turn against him very, very quickly. And this comes as there's just incredibly growing clear evidence of Donald Trump's cognitive decline. I was on Joy Reid, who has like you, a show on the internet now, with one of the psychiatrists, psychologists who put together the book about Donald Trump's mental problems. And I pointed out that these videotapes of Donald Trump walking where he zigzags. It isn't like following me. I have a slight disability, so I don't walk smoothly, but I walk in pretty much a straight line. God forbid I get stopped for suspected drunk driving, but anything short of that. But Donald is zigzags that are 4 and 5 feet out of the way, and that is one of the most basic signs of a psychomotor decline, where the signal from the brain is not getting down to his legs. And indeed, the doctor who was on with me said that, watch how his right leg crosses over. This gait is one of the clearest signs that you have dementia. And so imagine what advisors and American sources must be telling Zelensky about this, that he's really got to maneuver here incredibly carefully going forward.
Yeah, I'm on his best day, he's not clear-headed, but
Right.
and certainly not policy-oriented in any kind of way that serves anything but the Trump empire. Tony says, isn't it obvious that Trump has been in cahoots with Putin right from the beginning? Putin gets the red carpet and Zelensky gets the runaround. I mean, that's certainly true.
This goes back, the Russians have been courting Donald since at least 1987, back when Trump Tower opened at the end of 1983 or early 1984. A guy showed up to buy 5 apartments in Trump Tower with cash. And I don't mean he brought his checkbook. I mean, he brought greenbacks for 5 apartments. And Trump, instead of being skeptical of that, of saying, what's going on here? Hey, get the cops, of course. Oh, hey, that's great. And he charged premium prices to people who would be rejected by any co-op board in Manhattan. He saw the opportunity. Oh, decent people, honest people can't buy into these buildings because they're not honest people. But hey, I can just charge them premium prices and they'll give me their crooked money. And the Russians have been courting him ever since. And Donald is, from the point of view of the Kremlin, Donald is an asset. Whether he is an active agent or is in fact capable of having the mental process to know he's an active agent is unclear. It's not out of the picture, but unclear. But there is no way to dispute that from the point of view of the Kremlin, Donald Trump is the most valuable asset they have, the most valuable source they ever developed.
Yeah, that seemed to be the case right out of the chute, like within the first hours of his presidency. I want to pivot to
even during the campaign, Mark.
Yeah, even during the
campaign when he met with the Russian emissaries who said, "We're here to help you win the election in 2016."
Well, in 2016, it was incredible. That's why I couldn't believe that statement. There was no collusion. Are you kidding?
Right.
There was demonstrable collusion.
There was a meeting that was collusive, and
right.
And if you're running for any United States federal office, or maybe even any state office, and you get a phone call from a foreign emissary saying we want to help you, there is only one thing you should do. You pick up the phone, you call the FBI, and say, "I need to speak to someone in counterintelligence." Instead, the Trumps lied and denied about this because that's who they are. They're a white-collar crime family.
Well, I've detailed so much in the way, and I think you saw it on wild display with the Saudis, the way in which the Trump family has made deal after deal in the Middle East, and they're taking corruption to levels that, I mean, are inconceivably big.
Mark, we just do a little bit of business with Saudi Arabia. It's just a little bit. Didn't you hear a great leader tell us that?
Well, we did the story a couple of days ago about the drone company that the Trump child is involved in, Don Jr., I think it is. And Don Jr. Is on the board of this. I mean, it's so parallel to the Hunter Biden thing, where you heard this hue and cry. But anyway,
that's different. Hunter Biden is different because Hunter Biden he's different.
Right, exactly, because he's different. So in this case, the minute, I mean, almost within the day that Don Jr. is part of this board for this drone company, small little drone company in Florida, their stock goes off the charts high. Right. And then they make a huge deal with the U.S. government for drones, for building these drones, powering these drones. And this is a company that, was just hatched like an hour ago type thing. So right. It is, there is grift on all levels. But because we're mentioning this, I hadn't planned to do this, but Tony, do you have the mobile thing, Tony? The Trump's mobile phone company was hatched for the MAGA people to really enjoy. Play a little. This is the announcement, and then I'll play the update here in a second. This is the announcement of Trump's mobile phone company coming. This was it this past summer? Or maybe it was August, I think it was.
Well, good morning, everyone. And today we're here to introduce Trump Mobile. We've partnered with some of the greatest people in the industry to make sure that real Americans can get true value from their mobile carriers. A big part of what we've done right now in the world has been focused on technology for people who have been underserved, whether that's been in crypto or anything else. But one of the places where we felt there was lackluster performance was in the mobile industry. And with Trump Mobile, we're going to be introducing an entire package of products that people can come, they can get telemedicine on their phone for one flat monthly fee, roadside assistance in their cars, unlimited texting to 100 countries around the world. And we've partnered with some of the best to really bring something unique to the American people.
Well, it's not so unique because it's kind of what we've seen before, David. Here's the update on that. Tony, play the update if you would, please. Trump Mobile, of course, there is no way to do what they wanted to do with building a phone just in this country. Here is the quick update on it.
The Trump family's attempt to launch a new smartphone is off to a rough start. You may remember back in June, Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. announced the launch of a new American-made mobile phone along with a wireless service they called Trump Mobile. The release was originally slated to happen in August, but now it's November and people are still waiting.
This was branded as a made in the USA phone. In fact, they said so on their website. But interestingly, as I've been trying to follow the development of this phone, they tweaked the wording on their website, and now the mention of the made in the USA is completely scrubbed. The smartphone experts that I've been speaking with, they said it's not technically possible to build an entirely made in the USA phone right now at that price point and at that development timeline. That's why there's skepticism about whether or not this phone.
And Mark, on top of this, it came out about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, in a footnote in the filing by Trump's financial company. I think it's called Trump Liberty, that the accountants said that their accounting reports, revenues, expenses, profits, cash flow, are not to be relied upon. They're not reliable. This is just, it's another grift. It's just another way to somehow make money off people who don't really understand what they're doing and compete with three big companies that are regulated by the federal government. Hi, I'm the president, and I'm here to compete with you. Because I control the regulatory process.
Let's move to this next topic, because I know that you've probably been following the Marjorie Taylor Greene Trump relationship implosion. And I have some video that kind of discusses whether or not this is an indicator of maybe a larger fracture within MAGA. The person speaking is Tara Setmeyer. She's actually a former GOP communications director on Capitol Hill. And she talks a little bit about, how relationships that Trump gets into always seem to end badly. Thank you, Tony.
Right, which is why I wonder why she's so shocked that it happened to her. No one is immune from Donald Trump turning on them. No one. He's done it to every person. He even turned on his loyal mentor, Roy Cohn, in the 80s, who basically built Donald Trump into the monster that he is today and taught him everything he knows. He turned on him. He would turn on his own children. So he is a malignant narcissist, and that's what he does. If you show one iota of independence from him, he turns around and threatens you and casts you aside, which is why I don't understand why so many Republicans continue to give their blind loyalty to him, because it never works out well for any of them. Now, you are starting to see some Republicans realizing that he is in fact a lame duck. The polling has been awful for him in every metric, and they are single seekers of reelection. They're looking for into the future, into 26, and realizing, I don't know if we can hitch our wagon to this guy. I think we're starting to see for the first time his political weakness in his endorsements and his do they really want to continue this agenda that he's put forward, because he is in fact a lame duck, whether he wants to try to tell people he's running for a third term or not. The Constitution says no, and last time I checked, we still have one. So
well, let me. I want to shorten.
This is and I'm glad that she mentions agenda. Thank you to Kim for that, for teeing that up, because it's exactly what I wanted to get to. Because his agenda actually isn't polling very well, David.
No, it's not. And let's look first at Marjorie Taylor Greene. She was going to be primaried by someone who's more MAGA than she has been, and probably calculated that there's a good chance I will lose. She came into Congress with a net worth of around roughly $750,000, and now her net worth is somewhere north of $25 million. Her disclosure statements show. Wow, how did you do that during 6 years in Congress? She also clearly is concerned that she'll be in the minority. And, it's just no fun to be in the minority on Capitol Hill. Doesn't matter House or Senate. That's not the place to be. So I'm not surprised that she's not running again, but she's also not sticking with Donald Trump's agenda, which is very unpopular. And one of the things the Democrats apparently, and I emphasize the word apparently because the Democrats have this long history of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, is the Democrats have started to say, gee, we might pick up rural voters over the shutting of these hospitals, the cutting off of food help, which hurts farmers as well as poor people. And they're working apparently to develop some strategy to try and flip some rural congressional districts, which would be a smart thing to do if they can pull it off. But yes, his agenda is not popular, and his increasingly nutty conduct is waking up a lot of people. There's a hardcore group that there are people 100 years from now who are going to be just like the people who say today Hitler was right. And they're going to say Trump was right. Okay, you're always going to have people like that. The object right now is the practical one of getting back control of the Congress away from Trump. And once you do that, depending on the margins, the number of votes you have above 50 in one house and 418 in the other, Donald can be just tied up in knots.
Speaking of the midterms, there is something going on in terms of voter suppression, and there are a lot of things going on in terms of voter suppression, of course, but Michigan, ahead of the midterms, making a play, are Republicans there, to strike down a decades-old Michigan law that allows the spouses and children of overseas Michigan voters to cast ballots in Michigan, even if they never lived there, as long as they're U.S. citizens. And this is typical because they're military families that were in Michigan last, but now they're stationed overseas type thing. But they want to change how the state counts votes before this June date on which the absentee ballots are mailed out. Speak to the gaming of the system, because you feel as though there's no way you can actually win the election, is something that is turning into a high art.
Yeah, this is not a new thing for Republicans. Let's be clear about that. The Republicans have worked to suppress the vote for forever. Up until about 25 years ago, the Republican Party was subject to a federal judicial ruling that they could not make calls on and just before Election Day, telling people if you show up to the polls, you're going, and this was aimed at Black voters, you will be arrested. We've discovered a search warrant about you, and you and your family are all going to be arrested. The family for harboring you, you fugitive. And unfortunately, that is no longer a court order that's in place. The Republicans got it lifted, and they're back to using those sorts of tactics. In Dodge City, Kansas, the only polling place is more than a mile beyond the end of the last city bus. So if you don't have a car, you have to go to the end of the line, you have to walk a mile, you have to wait to vote, you have to walk back a mile, and hopefully the bus hasn't stopped running for the day. Harris County, Texas, which is essentially greater Houston with roughly 4.5 million people, one place where you can drop off your ballot. You can only drop off the ballots of people who are in the car, and there's physically no way in the time period that's allowed for more than a relatively small number of people to deliver their ballots. I mean, all of this is part of a piece. The American people are not with the Republicans. So what do? You suppress the vote to make sure those American people who are with the Republicans can win elections. And the answer to that is it's not that hard to overcome this. You've just got to register to vote, follow up to make sure you weren't thrown off the rolls, which is a big problem in Georgia and Florida, among other places. And then you've got to cast your ballot. I mean, people died for this country, more than 1 million of them. So, if somebody goes, no, I don't want to be involved, or, oh, it's such a strain to have to go vote. Really?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think you'd feel as though, at least at this moment in time, there's a more animated voter base than ever before. But it has to be the right voter base. I'm running out of time, but I wanted
the Democrats
to
have to figure out one more thing, Mark. They cannot win if they just run on Donald is bad. I mean, Donald is bad. Donald should not be in the White House, but that's not enough. What are you going to do for me? And I think there's some very clear answers Democrats can do. We haven't raised the minimum wage since January 1 of 2009, done under a law signed by a Republican president. If the minimum wage had kept pace with productivity, it would be $26 an hour. And that means that everybody who makes up to about $35, perhaps even $40 an hour would have to be paid more. How would companies possibly afford that? I was looking today at the 10K, the formal disclosure statement of several large companies. They are spending more money buying back their own stock, which does nothing for productivity or economic growth, than they earned in profits. It was just astonishing. And of course, if you cut in half the number of shares, then the people who still have shares, they go up. The stock options that are out there go up in value. And Democrats can say, we're going to put an end to these stock buybacks. It was illegal before Ronald Reagan, and we can make it illegal again in most cases. We're going to get universal health care, one way or another, should be the next claim by the Democrats. And let me give you a just shocking number here. The amount of money we would have saved if we had had the French healthcare system in 2022, the latest where I can get all the different data that's needed to say this, would exceeded all of the income taxes paid by everybody who makes less than $500,000 a year. That's 99% of people that year. Think about that. Unless you're in the 1%, all your income taxes just equal the excess cost of American healthcare, because denying healthcare to people is a very expensive business. It costs a lot of money to legitimize denying healthcare that shortens lives. And lo and behold, these other countries with universal healthcare, they're living longer. Their longevity is increasing, unlike ours, and it used to be increasing faster than ours. We've stopped increasing. And it saves all this money, plus a lot of people in America who are taxpayers, if they're injured on the job or they develop certain healthcare conditions and they don't have the right insurance. A lot of people have crummy health insurance. They are converted into disabled people who are tax eaters, not taxpayers. They are tax eaters. Now, we're always going to have people who need public support. The Bible is full of this. Hammurabi's code has this in it. This is an ancient issue that some people need help, and the rest of us are going to have to pay for it. But we have a system to expand the numbers of those people. It's not only immoral, it's unbelievably expensive. It is astonishing. The Obamacare or Affordable Care Act was passed in 2010. It's 15 years, and the Republicans still don't have a plan. Yeah. And by the way, Affordable Care Act was a Republican plan. It was the Heritage Foundation's plan. They try to say, no, it's not our plan. Well, no, it's not exactly your plan, because nobody's plan gets enacted exactly as you put it out there. It's your plan. The idea is everybody has to have insurance, health insurance, to address what's called the free rider problem. People who don't get insurance and then expect the government to step in and save them. And they don't have a plan. But the least expensive way to provide the highest quality health care is to go to universal care. Yeah. And one of the ways to finance that, by the way, is not more income taxes. Because if you shave off the handful of people who are $1 million a year medical expenses from the moment they're born till they die, even if they live to be my age, and on the other hand, you shave off the very small number of people who are never sick. I've known one person who was never sick in his life, never had a cold or a fever until he was 89 years old.
Wow.
He had been the national editor of the LA Times. And then when his son said, you get on a plane and come out here and see Dad, because he's not going to be around more than a few weeks, he hung on for 9 months. You exclude these two ends, the super expensive, the super cheap. All the rest of us over the course of our lifetime, our healthcare costs are pretty close. So you can finance it with the most logical thing to do would be to finance it off a tax on food. And you put almost no tax on apples and oranges and celery and whole grains. And you put a heavy tax on ultra processed foods and fast food. And you can pay for the whole healthcare system with that, while saving as much money as everybody who makes less than $500,000 a year paid in income taxes. I mean, that's an astonishing number.
What it shows, though, according to this new report in CBS today, the Speaker Mike Johnston told the White House most House Republicans have little interest in extending the Affordable Care Act's enhanced subsidies. So I would argue, David, they don't care. They don't care what people are going through, and it's not a top priority for them. They care about around election time. They say, oh, healthcare is a big deal, and then they do nothing.
Compassionate conservatism was a nice phrase, but it's completely gone out the window. This is clearly an attack on the poor. It's going to war on the poor. Look at what's happening with midwives. Big effort against them. The Trump administration just declared that if you get a nursing degree after you get your basic college education, that's not a professional degree anymore. Gee, what is a more gendered on the female side occupation in America than nurse? There are lots of male nurses, but much more common that they're women. This is a regime and a party that we are the party of, by, and for the super rich. And we're going to mine the pockets of everybody else so the super rich get more because they don't have enough. That's our real problem is, Elon Musk and his fellows, they just don't have enough. And it's government's obligation to get them more.
Crazy. I'm so glad you mentioned that because, and I don't know if Mark is back, but I'm so glad you mentioned that about the professional degrees, because we have a shortage of medical professionals in the United States and rural hospitals and everything else. You would think that we would want to help people qualify for loans by designating these degrees as professional, and instead whittling it down leaves us in an even worse position.
Well, I would argue you would think we really need to have no out-of-pocket cost education for people who become nurses, because unless you're in a very specialty field, you're an anesthesiology nurse in neurosurgery, this is not a super high-paying field. And we should be educating and providing ourselves with a competent group of people who can do that work. Now, there was a big blow-up 35 years ago, I think, it was in the last century, over Filipino nurses. We were bringing all sorts of nurses to America from the Philippines. And given the xenophobic view of the world from the Trump administration, we certainly don't want to be bringing nurses here from somewhere else. Well, fine, then you got to educate them at home, and that costs money, but that's an investment. It's an investment. It's not like giving a tax cut to billionaires. It's an investment in a healthier, wealthier, longer living society.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.